few seconds. Hello everyone and welcome to today's Instagram live session for Gradfest 2021. We'll just wait a few minutes and we'll get started with the programme. Alright, I see a lot of people have joined. Just give it a few more minutes and then we'll get started soon. Let's just get started now. Just waiting for it to load up and we'll get started. Hello Rebecca, we'll just get started in a few seconds after just introduce you and introduce everyone to today's live session. So good afternoon and welcome to today's live. Hello, good afternoon and welcome to today's live session of question and answers for Gradfest 2021 at Queen's University Belfast. I'm your host Edward and I currently study history and politics here at the university. I'm about to enter my second year. So today I'm just as interested as hopefully many of you are in an employer's view on how we students can best prepare ourselves for the world of work. Today I'll be hosting an interview with Rebecca Sinclair, who works for EY, to discuss emotional intelligence and resilience. EY is a professional services network which helps companies with assurance, tax and financial audit. Its headquarters are based in London, however it has two offices here in Ireland, one in Belfast and one in Dublin. So there are many important skills sought by employers to seek from graduates who apply for jobs. So I'm quite interested in learning a few things from this interview for the next few years, such as how we can best prepare ourselves with improved social skills from extracurricular activities that we may do at the university, or even in our last year at the uni, an international study experience. So we'll discuss how employers expect candidates also to respond well to change, deal with their own emotions, and also how to deal with the feelings of others in the workplace. So I really hope you enjoy today's interview and also learn something new and also learn something for a future job interview that you may have in the future. So thanks for tuning into today's session and also hope you enjoy. So hello Rebecca, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. I'm actually in the London Bridge office today that you mentioned, so I'm in the office today, which is really nice.
Is it a lot of travelling then to get there?
Not for me, because this is the office that I'm based in, so it's not too far for me to get to, but it's nice to be back in and to actually see people face to face after working virtually.
Yep. Well, we'll just get started for the discussion. And so the first question I want to ask you then is what is cross-cultural sensitivity and awareness and why is it so important in the workplace?
Yes, good question. So I think for me, cross-cultural sensitivity is really about cultural awareness and being able to work with different people from different backgrounds to you at any level. So maybe as a student, working in teams of different people, welcoming people from different backgrounds to yourself, and then also when you're working, your colleagues, your manager, or when you become a manager, the people that are working with you might be from different backgrounds, if that's cultural backgrounds or otherwise. So I think cross-cultural sensitivity and cultural awareness is being aware of those differences and celebrating those differences so that everyone feels like they can bring their best self to work, really, or to whatever environment it is.
As many of the people watching would be students, of course, here at the university, do you think an international experience, like a study experience or work experience abroad, might help develop that skill?
Definitely. I think any experience you can get that puts you, maybe out of your comfort zone, or that helps you to meet people from different backgrounds, so you get different experiences under your belt, will help. And there's no better way to get exposure to different cultures and different ways of living and different lifestyles really than to travel. And things like a year abroad or study abroad or traveling, you may not always get the opportunity to do that at a later date. So the more you can make the most of opportunities that come your way, the better, I think.
Yep. As part of that, for like someone applying with their CV, would a knowledge of a foreign language probably help show employers that someone can demonstrate those skills?
Can you repeat that? Sorry, did you say how can someone showcase that they've got that skill?
Yep. Can like knowledge of a foreign language, let's say, for example, like at A level, I studied German. So would someone who knows a second language be able to demonstrate that skill easily to an employer then?
Yeah, I think anything like that can give you a platform to then talk about it, and it gives a natural in for you to then talk about that experience that you've had. And by learning a language or another skill like that, it shows that you've gone out of your way to do something that more than what was expected of you, for you to learn more about that. And it gives you something that you can naturally then talk about with your interviewer, and it can be something that can come to mind, or they might ask about, or you can then bring up. So it gives a natural in for you to talk about it.
Yep. So the next part of the session, then we'll talk about emotional intelligence. So what is emotional intelligence, and how is it valued in the workplace?
Yeah, good question. So I've actually done some learnings about this recently. We have a like EY badges program, and I've done the badge and teaming. So quite a lot of the learning was about emotional intelligence and more of the people side of things, I think. So emotional intelligence is different to kind of IQ that you naturally think about. Emotional intelligence is having that understanding of other people around you and learning to be aware of other people's emotions or how they might be handling a situation, so that when you're talking to people, you're working with people, you can pick up on those natural indicators of how they're feeling. And if you're delivering news, you can start to get to know that person, so you can think, what questions might they have that are going to come up from this, what concerns or other emotions might they be feeling, and so you can be aware of that, so you can learn to adapt your style so that you can work with them really well.
Would you say that it is particularly valued in roles that would include much more teamwork, let's say, with colleagues or customers, for example?
Yeah, I to be honest, I think any role that you are dealing with any people in any platform, it would be a useful skill to have in terms of emotional intelligence, particularly in professional services, the roles that you're working with clients and you're building those relationships with clients, which for us professional services, it's what we do, giving guidance to clients. So having that emotional intelligence skill, being able to collaborate really well with your colleagues or with your clients can really help, and you can build that positive relationship with your clients. So it is definitely something that we look for throughout the process, that ability to work with others that are different to you. If you're in a group exercise, making sure you're reading the room and you're making sure that everyone's comfortable and they're able to share what they think. If someone's being a bit quieter, check in and see if they have any thoughts that they want to share or what they think about that's been discussed so far. So it is definitely a really important skill that we look for during the process.
What other skills would you say that are linked to emotional intelligence? So other skills that employers would probably look out in candidates to work with in a team sort of setting?
Yeah, there's loads of strengths that are closely related to emotional intelligence. The ones that come to mind are resilience. So that's one of the key strengths that we look for throughout the process. So resiliency to keep a positive mindset, and when challenges and problems come up, maybe you need to take a minute, think about what's happened, regroup, and then keep towards that goal that you want to achieve. And maybe that goalpost might change, but you still have that resiliency in you to keep going. So resiliency is a key one, and that links to team working and emotional intelligence, being able to kind of rally your team around you if you're going through like maybe a budget cut or the switch to working virtually rather than working in the office, trying to keep positive and working with your team to help everyone get through what could be a challenge or could be a difficult time. So resiliency is definitely a key one. And the other one I'll mention is adaptability. So this is another one of the strengths that we look for. And being adaptable is really about, links very closely to resilience, it links very closely to team working, and it's about being able to adapt to changes that come your way. So if let's say a scope of a project changes or the budget gets cut in half, it's about being able to still regroup, figure out what changes you need to make and implement those changes. So maybe you need to have a change of timeline, and you might need to think, okay, what's now our biggest priority because we've got less time to get things done. Or if a date changes to 5 years in the future, maybe this project now needs to completely change and become something different for the time being until there might be other priorities that you need to work on. So I think being adaptable and being able to collaborate with others around you, know what you can bring to the table, knowing your own, being aware of your own emotions and what you're good at and what you're bad at, and when you perform your best, is all really closely linked, I think.
How would employers, for example, like at EY, probably assess emotional intelligence? How would they find who's the best suitable candidate? Let's say they maybe think on their feet if things if something doesn't go to plan.
Yeah, so our application process is partly through online tests, and we have a job simulation, which is the third stage, so the final online test, and that's linked to the job that you're going to be doing. So for that one, you'll get questions that are linked to the role. So say you're applying for consulting or you're applying for assurance or tax, it'll be linked to that role. And through the questions that you'll get there, we'll be looking for that strength. So how do you work with others around you? How do you handle a change in what's going on? So you might get questions around how would you handle this particular situation, or this news has come out, or this something's changed in the your manager's running late, or the client wants something different. How do you handle that? So we're looking for that resiliency, we're looking for that collaboration. How do you work with others? And then at the assessment centre, which we call the EY Experience Day, you'll have different tasks that you'll do. So some of them will be one-to-one, some of them will be in a group, and throughout we'll be looking for that collaboration strength. So how do you work in a team? How do you communicate your ideas? And also, how do you make sure that everyone else is also contributing their own thoughts, making sure that everyone's getting the chance to share, and how you're bouncing ideas around, and how you then kind of bring those ideas together into the final outcome. And then the last stage is the final interview. And this is with a senior member of the team that you're applying for. And again, they're really looking for that collaboration. So you might want to have some examples in your mind of how you've worked in a team, what the team achieved, but also what did you personally do towards that team's success? How did you support the team? How did you make sure that everyone kept going? Did you face any challenges? How did you regroup and keep that going positively? So it's a vital skill anyway, but it's definitely really important for us because we work so much with clients. So it's a really key area that we look for.
How can you develop that skill? Because of course, if you're in a job for life, basically, or in different kinds of jobs for a whole lifetime, you would have to consistently develop that skill. It wouldn't just be just one that you would do for one particular job. You do it in many different types of jobs. So how would EY develop those skills for their employer?
So there's two different ways to think about it. So there's sort of thinking about the theory side of things and developing the strengths. So there's loads of good resources that you can do. In terms of at EY, I've done the EY badges. So I've done I could spend hours talking about it, but I'll keep it nice and succinct. So I've done the teaming badge, which was very much about how you work in teams, how you can make sure that the team's working effectively. Maybe you're working like virtually as we are now. Maybe you've got colleagues that are in a different country or a different time zone. How do you work together? So there's learnings that you can do through those kind of badges. There's also a badge in inclusion and belonging, and that was where I learned a lot about like cross-cultural, we were talking about a bit earlier, about how you can work with people from different backgrounds. So there's learnings you can do in that, and there's lots of good courses on things like Udemy about working effectively in teams and cross collaboration and cross-cultural experiences. There's also things you can do like on watching TED Talks. So I watched a really good TED Talk that was called The Power of Introverts, and that was about someone talking about their experiences of being an introvert and how they've gone through that experience, and how you can be making sure that those that are like quieter in your team can still feel included. So there's that kind of learning aspect to it. So there's like good books and TED Talks and YouTube videos that you can get involved in. And then there's also the experience side to things. So when you're thinking about your own experiences, whether it's like workplace, so anything, working in a team, at a consulting firm, or working in a team at a supermarket, or working in a team at a cafe, or anything, what team experiences do you have? Try and think about who's on your team or who's in your business area, and how do they work, and think about your own experiences. When are you happiest? What are you doing at that time? When do you feel stressed? What might be causing that stress? And the more that you can learn about your own performance and your own emotions and what kind of drives you, you can then start learning about other people. And then you can bring that into practice when you're thinking about interviews and preparing for interviews, and thinking about what teaming experiences you've had. And it's what did the team do? What did the team achieve? And then what have you done towards that? What's your personal contribution to that team working?
Would you say that, for example, for students, do you think a gap year might develop that skill a lot more than maybe someone who just goes straight from university into a job?
Yeah, so from my personal experience, I always went straight into the next stage, and I never took a gap year or year abroad or anything like that. So you very much don't, it's not essential, it's not something that we look for, you don't need to have it. But I do think that having that year abroad or that experience, it's just something a bit different, can definitely add to your strengths and your experiences. And especially it can give you a good platform to talk about, challenges that you've gone through. I know some of the offer holders that we've had recently have talked about experiences like volunteering abroad and working in teams with people from lots of different countries, and helping a community, or doing something that's just a bit different and a bit out there. So it can definitely add to your experiences and your application, and show that you've had these experiences and what you've learned from them, and it can give you just something a bit different to stand out, I think.
You also talked about earlier on about resilience. So do you think that travel can actually develop those qualities, such as resilience or proactivity, for employment in the future?
Yeah, I'm sure that it would. I think resiliency is a difficult skill to master. So the more different experiences you go through, and you might have to face challenges and overcome them, can definitely help build towards that. And I know people do years abroad, or they spend time living in a different country that they would never have the opportunity to do. So you'll naturally develop some strengths that you probably never would have had the opportunity to develop if you hadn't had that opportunity. So I think it can definitely help to build your resiliency skills and learn more about yourself throughout that process as well. And also it's a great experience to try something different, live in a different country, and do something a bit different.
So why would employers like EY, for example, value resiliency or flexibility, let's say, in their employees?
Yeah, so I mean, there's going to be loads of reasons why we look for it, but it's definitely something that we look for throughout the process, and we look for it in our people. We're a very people-focused organisation, both in terms of the work that we do for clients. We provide guidance to them, and what the client will need is constantly changing and evolving. A lot of the stuff we're doing at the moment is on digital innovation, and industries are being massively disrupted by innovation and tech, and especially that's been escalated over the last year and working virtually. So it's a rapidly changing industry that a new regulation can come out, or there can be a massive change in the wider environment like this last year has shown. So companies, our clients, need to rapidly adapt. So we need to be there for them, and we need to be flexible and adaptable, and we need to be thinking about, you know, what's out there. Is there a new tech coming out, or is there a new regulation coming out they might need to be thinking about, so that we can be that go-to advisor for them.
So is that why employers would probably look for someone who's also adaptable to like a new setting, a new, like you say, a new regulation or new technology that comes out in maybe the future sometime?
Yeah, so we call it agility in terms of the strength that we look for. So it's about being agile to new things out there, whether that's a new regulation or a new way of working or a new opportunity for one of our clients. And we look for that strength through your experiences, whether it's, you know, a previous work experience, or whether it's working in a team in a sports club, or working in some other experience that you've had in your personal life where something changed and, you know, you got through a difficult time, or the last year and how you adapted to that and, you know, studied from home or worked from home or did something different. So we look for that agility skill, being able to take on new opportunities, learn new skills, pick up new information, and then apply it to what we're doing. So where you might have been on client site and been able to go up to a client and ask their advice, and the same in the kind of student environment, you might have been working in a team on a team project and you could all chat and bounce ideas in person, and then you had to adapt that to online, and maybe you're on a Zoom call or a Microsoft Teams call or something else, to then try and hash out ideas and figure out what you wanted to do. And it's about how did you adapt to that situation and what did you learn from that time.
How do you think employers, for example, like at EY, be able to like test candidates of their agility? So, for example, maybe in interviews or in assessment days?
Yeah, so we like to look for that strength, and we like to challenge. So you might have questions like, you know, what would you do, or how would you handle if your client disagreed with you, or how would you handle if your manager wanted to go in a different direction. And we'll be looking for that response of how you'd handle the client, or how you'd handle your team, and maybe you'd, you know, reflect and go back and get some more evidence to support this change, or maybe you'd work closely with the client on what direction they wanted to go in. And really we're looking for how you handle that situation, how you think about the client's best interests, how you maintain EY integrity throughout that process as well. So it's the integrity of the company, and it's also thinking about the client and how we can be supporting the client to get the best outcome for them as well.
I just want to go back to one of the questions earlier, whenever you were talking about gap years. I know you, of course, didn't do one yourself. You just went straight into employment. But if you were like trying to talk to like maybe graduates who are maybe thinking about a gap year, how do you think they should use that gap year to develop skills such as agility or even emotional intelligence?
Yeah, so I think it's all about putting yourself out of your comfort zone during that experience. So whether it's some kind of travel, or whether it's some kind of volunteering work, you know, think about where your comfort level is, where you are now, and then try and think of things that are going to challenge you and are going to help you develop. So I didn't take a gap year, but I did a volunteering project in Borneo, Malaysia, and we were working with a centre there that worked with disabled children, and we were building a like sensory garden for them. And so through that experience, I had never had any real life experience of that before, and so it put me out my comfort zone. I was in a different climate. It was really hot and muggy there all the time, which I wasn't used to, and I was working face to face with, you know, loads of different children that I hadn't met before. I hadn't really had experience working with children before, and especially children with, you know, different kind of learning abilities. So that definitely put me out of my comfort zone. And then I talked about that in my interview, about how I'd worked in a team with the other people that were there with me, and we'd done like the physical work building this playground, but we'd also had this learning opportunity that I hadn't experienced before. And so you could talk about what you learned from it, the experience, how it's then helped you when you go on to work with different people that you haven't worked with before, and from that learning. So you can show that you're really comfortable with working with different people, and you've had this experience and you've gained this from it.
Would you recommend something like that, like a volunteering experience, for example, the one that you did in Malaysia? Oh, I think it's buffered. Oh. Did you hear that? Yeah? Oh. Can you hear me? Yeah? We're just buffering at the minute. We'll just wait a couple of seconds to see if Rebecca is able to rejoin. I know there's a question in the chat. I'll ask her that question towards the end. Technology. See if I'll add her again, see if it works. Then we should be able to rejoin.
Oh. Hi, hopefully I'm back.
Yep, sorry. I was just asking one more question towards the end. I think you didn't catch it because the buffer. But I was just saying about your volunteering experience away in a different way abroad. Would you recommend something like that to maybe a graduate who's probably thinking about that right now?
Yeah, hopefully the tech issues don't come back. Yes, I would recommend, like I said, anything that puts you out your comfort zone. And especially through the last year, there's probably lots of different places that need support at the moment. So I think any experience that you can get that will put you out your comfort zone, that will help you to learn more about yourself and also more about others around you can help. So there's loads of different volunteering opportunities that you can do, whether it's more, working with people. I know there's opportunities like, teaching English in different countries, or working with children, or working with adults, or there might be opportunities more like project based, like helping to clear some land or build a house or something like that. And there's also opportunities closer to home, like I know there's those like National Trust opportunities that you can get involved in. So it doesn't necessarily have to be abroad, but I do think that having experience to work with people who are different to you and different to your background, whatever your background might be, can help you learn as well, so that when you then go into the working world, you've had this exposure to different things, and you've developed skills about yourself, and you think, well, if I got through like that time when I was away from home and put out my comfort zone, I can do this project. So yep. I think it's good in that aspect.
Well, thank you very much. That's the questions I wanted to ask. There's just one more question in the chat. I'll just ask you that question. Aoife Stewart says, how important is it to display cultural sensitivity outside work? For example, in what you share and like on social media? Actually, that's a very, very good question. I forgot to answer that. We'll ask that, sorry. So how would social media help develop skills such as cultural sensitivity?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think you can learn a lot from people on social media. There's a lot of people that share like blog posts and videos about their experiences or what they've learned through their career. And I've noticed it a lot, even in students as well, probably more so in students than anywhere else, sharing their experiences of joining a company or sharing their experiences of working abroad. And you can learn a lot from that, from the videos or from the articles that you're reading, and learn more about how other countries do that. So especially for us, because we're a global organisation, I'll often like follow, key leads or people that I'm interested in hearing more about from other of our offices abroad, from other EY offices, or from like politics or world leaders, and you can watch what they're sharing and read their videos and watch their articles, and it will just help you get an appreciation for the wider picture and what's going on in other places and how that then might be relevant for us here.
Would you also say, just as an add-on to that, would you also say that maybe sometimes social media can sometimes hinder our ability to sort of like be a little bit more sensitive with different cultures?
Yeah, I think you have to be conscious of not necessarily believing everything that you see and you hear. Like sometimes things can be very one-sided, so wouldn't necessarily believe everything that you see and hear on social media, but I think it does help to just get an appreciation for what other people are going through. But you have to limit it a bit. You don't want to always be on you don't always be on social media. You don't want to get into like a trap where you're just reading more and more about a certain topic, and what you might be reading might be false. So I think you do have to be conscious of what you're reading and check the source and make sure it's a reliable place that you're reading it from.
So what you're saying basically is be a wee bit more diligent on social media,
yeah? I mean, you can always be more diligent, can't you? So I think, just be mindful of what you're seeing and what you're hearing, and, make sure. But I think it's still important to have a look at what other countries are sharing, what they're doing, and maybe they're doing some cool new tech innovation, or maybe you can hear from someone's personal experience of something that's going on in a country. I think it's always useful to know more. You can always learn and develop.
Yep. Well, thank you very much, Rebecca, for answering all those questions. I'm just going to close off now. So, well, yeah, that's all for today's session on emotional intelligence and resilience in the workplace. I hope that you've all enjoyed the session, and also learned a few things about how to prepare yourself for a job interview, maybe in the future. Also, if you want to find out more about how to develop these skills that we've been talking about in the discussion, well, you can do so through the Gradfest website online. There's blogs, for example, written by Queen's students who have been on an international study experience, something that we've actually been talking about. There's also a number of videos from TEDx discussing how we can best develop our skills to deal with cultural sensitivity, maybe even help us do that through social media as well. But also you can find out more about emotional intelligence on various other websites such as Target Jobs or Career Addict. Sorry. So yes, I would like to thank Rebecca from EY for taking the time to talk to me on this topic, and also to the staff here at Queen's for helping organise this discussion throughout the week. If you'd like to review what we've discussed within the last half an hour, you can do so on the Gradfest website, which has all of the discussions from this week. Also, just for tomorrow, you can also join us again tomorrow at 12 on Instagram Live to hear Victoria from FinTrue answering your questions on future leaders, influencing, persuading and teamwork. And don't forget to visit the Gradfest website if you have any more questions. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Rebecca, and hopefully haven't taken you out of your work today. Yep.
All good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks.